Sorry. Let's start over. Okay. Do you remember all of the goals that you set back in January 2020? Do you remember all of the things that you thought this year would bring, or the things that you thought, this year would turn into? And do you remember kind of, what it was like to dream and think about what the year could be or what you could achieve, or the things you wanted to change from last year to, this year? So, oh, Jared says he can't hear. You guys should be able to hear now. I accidentally muted myself, and so sorry about that. So you guys should be able to hear now. So we're going to go over a little bit of how we're going to use our 2020, basically our goals that we set in January, and then how we're going to use that to inform our 2021 plans. So think about January 2020. What did you want to accomplish? What types of things did you want to get done? What types of income growth did you want, or clients, or niches did you want to move into, or types of writing? So one of the things I sent out to my subscribers this week, to email subscribers, was a list of questions that I asked myself when I go through this kind of year-end review situation. So I thought I would read those here so you guys can also hear them, just in case you don't subscribe. If you want to subscribe, all you have to do is go below, get the free pricing guide, and that'll subscribe you to the newsletter so you get tips and tricks beyond just these videos every single week in your inbox. So one of the questions I asked myself that I think is really important is, what and who did you like, and then what worked? So this question I think is really important because it's what type of work, what types of things in your business, and then who did you like? What clients did you like working for? What niches did you like working for? What types of things popped up that you really liked doing? And then it's like, what worked? So for me, that's a big difference. A lot of times I've noticed that when you get a year-end review, sometimes the question is just what worked in your business and what didn't. So that's not exactly the whole picture, right? Well, one of the things that, let's say you really liked writing magazine articles, or let's say you really liked, writing white papers, but those are so few and far between that it's just not working in your business. You might have liked it, but it's not working. And the opposite is true too. Let's say you wrote a ton of blog posts and you were just, that was really working in your business, but you hated it. That was a piece of your business that you felt like was really boring, or you didn't want to move into it in the next year, but it was working. So I feel like when you see a year-end review and they just talk about what worked, I think that's missing a really big piece of like what you liked and what you didn't. What types of things were meaningful for you to do and what types weren't. So I think that's one question. The next question would be, what did you suck at and who sucked? Then what didn't work? So what did you suck at in your business? Are you bad at accounting? Are you bad at doing your tax stuff? What types of assignments did you get that just weren't a fit for you? You thought that it was like, man, why can't I do this? And it turns out it's just not a fit for you. And then it's also like, who sucked? What clients sucked? What types of work or people that you interacted with sucked? Like maybe there's a certain niche where they just want you to be super formal and that's just not your style. And then that gives you all the information you need to go into what didn't work. So what didn't work is kind of the same thing. Like we need to know what we're not good at, what didn't happen this past year, what types of clients we don't want to work with again, and then we can figure out what didn't work. So we can either get a VA to help us with certain things, or we can move into a new niche or a different type of client, or we can, make sure that we are figuring out what didn't work in terms of like, even though I liked doing this thing, it's not working for, the income level I want to be at my business. Like, let's say you're writing too many magazine articles and the assignments are just too far, and like they're too far spaced apart, payments are too far spaced apart, and you're like, man, I need more business clients. Well, that would be something that worked, but it kind of didn't work in terms of where you want to go with your income. And I think these questions are really important rather than like what worked and what didn't. I don't think it helps you explore the types of assignments, the niches, the clients, the actual depth of your business, the accounting, the managing appointments, the to-do list, the way that you scheduled your week. I don't think it asks you that when you ask like what worked and what didn't. I feel like that's so, so general. It doesn't help you deep dive. So I'm hoping that these questions are going to help you deep dive a little bit more. The third one that I had in my newsletter was, when was your rest time and how did you handle your downtime? So I know that 2020 was a super, super crazy year, and there wasn't a lot of downtime because there was so much anxiety and depression and scary things going on and turbulence and just a lot of stuff all at once. So think about, especially for this year, like, when was your rest time? Did you schedule it? Did you think about the amount of time you needed off? Did you think about what you did during your rest time? That's the handling your downtime. If you scheduled rest time and didn't take it, that's a big problem. And if you actually scheduled rest time but you couldn't relax, that means you're not handling your downtime well. And we're not talking about weekends. I know a lot of times when freelance writers are like, oh yeah, like I had weekends off, or I took a 3-day weekend, on all the government holidays. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actual time off where you're just not at your computer, you're not futzing around with your clients, you're not trying to implement new programs or playing with new processes. This is time where you're just cut off. Maybe you have to check in with email every once in a while to make sure that everything is on track and all that stuff. But if you're handling your downtime well and you've actually scheduled rest time in advance, you should be feeling more rested rather than always amped up all the time. So that's something I think is really important to making sure you're writing well, doing good work, and then also making sure you have a business that's moving forward, that actually works in your favor. Number 4 was, how consistent were you checking in quarterly and mid-year? I think a lot of people, when March hit after Q1, it was just kind of like they just gave up on the year. They just decided it was over. And that's 9 months of your life you're not going to get back. So after March, if you kind of gave up, why did you give up? What happened? Or was it just the pandemic? Was there something else that happened? Was it fear that held you back? Was it that you were scared, you didn't know what to do for the next 9 months? Think about how you were impacted every single quarter and use that to inform your next year. Was it something that you feel like now in December that you can look back and be like, man, I was really scared, but I just couldn't recalibrate. Maybe I need to talk to someone about that. Or maybe I need to just, learn something about myself that I don't do well in these types of situations, or I need some sort of skills or coping mechanism to deal with this. And of course, we've never experienced a pandemic, right? So, or at least most of us on the planet haven't. So I think, just learning a lot from what happened this year will inform you next year. Every quarter I check in and see how I'm doing, see how my income is going, how my clients are, what I want to be doing. And then I do that mid-year at, the June mark or so. And that helps me recalibrate. The quicker that you check in, the quicker you can recalibrate. If you only check in and set goals every January and December, it's really hard to figure out what's working and what's not until the end of the year. So I love quarterly and mid-year check-ins just because it helps you make changes and pivot. And after, I'll give you guys an example. So when the pandemic hit in March, I had a big gap where a lot of people just kind of cut their content and they just weren't doing projects. And probably, I think about late June or maybe early June, somewhere in the June timeframe. So it was probably March, April, and then somewhere in June, people started basically turning their lights back on. And they were like, oh, this isn't going away. This is going to be a long-term thing. We need to participate in the world. We need to still do stuff. People are, still running businesses in other parts of the world and in the US. So then June, July, August, that was when things kind of picked up. So if I hadn't been checking in with my business, I would have been like, okay, cool, Q1 was this and Q2 was this, and then everything kind of fell apart. I wouldn't have had a pulse on who's picking up writers, who's trying to basically wake back up and write their content, who's still trying to get customers and clients and students, and who's trying to increase their revenue, who's trying to keep their business running. If I hadn't been checking in and following up or seeing what clients I have or seeing who went dormant for a while, then, my business would have suffered a lot more. So my 5th one was, how well did you handle the roller coaster ride with no seatbelt that was 2020? I think this is really important. There's a lot of things I think people learned about themselves and each other this year. There were a lot of important things that happened that showcased different pieces of personality, how you deal with being home with your family all the time, how you deal with not being able to go out or go co-working or go for a walk. or, being scared to go to the grocery store. Like, I think if you unpack a lot of those different things, it'll really help your next year. There is always going to be uncertainty. I think that's something that was learned very heavily this year, that as much as we like to have a schedule and plan and have things in order, there's always uncertainty in life. Even if we don't recognize it all the time, it always exists. I think this year just made it very apparent how uncertain things can be and how tumultuous they can be. And if your head isn't in the right place, or if you're not trying to focus on certain little pieces in your life, that things can go haywire really quickly. I think when you think about 2020 as a year, now that we're in December, we're heading close into, the holidays, 2021. Look at how you actually handled all of the different changes this year. What were you doing in your life, in your business, with your relationships? Were you taking care of your health? Were you taking care of your mind? Were you taking care of your clients? Or was it always this mad dash rush where you're just trying to cherry pick everything and get everything in line and hopefully it works out and oh my God, I don't know what to do. So I think looking back at that, unpacking how you handled this year will really make a difference in next year, because if anything, this has taught you that things are uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen as much as we want to think that we can predict things or plan. I think having a little bit of uncertainty sometimes, where you think you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try my best, but things are uncertain. I think maybe it'll give you a little bit of peace to know that, like, I'm trying my best, but sometimes things happen. I think it also gives you a peace where you can remember that it's okay. It's okay that some things are uncertain and you're going to get through it. We all got through, at least, some of us who are here watching, we got through 2020. We're still here. So that was, I think, a really important question of how you handled 2020. My last one in here was, what did you learn about your work, personal habits, and personality? And what did you learn that deeply affected how you'll move forward? So this is the deep dive. This is the deep dive of like, cool, I noticed these trends over 2020 in my business and personal life and family life and pet life, and this is how I'm going to move forward. What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about how I worked when things were crazy? How did I show up for my clients, and was I pissed off, or was I, is my reaction to fear anger? Is my reaction to fear to be super scared and not take any action? Is my personality more one of that gets in the shell when I get really scared? Is my personality more like, oh my gosh, I actually need to be near people? I thought I was a hermit, but it turns out I need to be near people. All of these different questions about how you work, your habits, and basically how your personality is for your work and business, or your work and family life, that means a lot to go into 2021. That'll inform a lot of different things. Like if 2021 is more of a roller coaster ride, which hopefully it won't be, but if it is, there's a lot of deep dives here that we can do to make sure that we know how, like, okay, in 2020 I handled it this way, 2021 I would like to handle it that way. There's a lot of pieces in here where we can kind of learn from our past behavior to inform our 2021 behavior. So I think those questions are super important to go over, but I also kind of wanted to go over a few other things. And I'm first going to say hi to a few people that have popped in. So we have Jared. First he said he couldn't hear anything, but it seems like things are going well now. And Tommy and Getty popped in, and Mary popped in. Oh, Mary's made a nice little comment. Let's pop Mary up. So Mary says she loves how the advice is practical and actionable. So thank you, Mary. I really appreciate that. It's really important to me that what you guys get here on YouTube and then also in the newsletters is like steps that you can take to make your business better, to make your life better, to have the little pieces to make it so that it's not so confusing and so pie in the sky kind of deal. I also have, Jared has a great question here. So Jared says, what are some of the tasks that me or other writers have successfully delegated to a VA? So this is a great question. One of the things I think is first important is like, you don't need a VA until you know what you can give them. So when I had a VA, and I will have one in the future, I had her do social media stuff. I wanted her to help me with my inbox. I wanted her to help me basically like manage a lot of different parts of my business, like finding images for social media posts or editing things, or I had a big long list. I think I might share that someday, but I had a big long list of things where I was like, I have a process, and I can give this process to someone else to do so that it gets done in the way that I would like it to be done. But also I already know all of these tasks can be done by someone else who's not me in the way I like them to be done. So think about the types of things. Like, I know that there's some writers who have VAs edit their work. So when they are writing an assignment, they, sometimes make a lot of errors or grammatical mistakes or miss words, or sometimes they just need someone else to read their work. And for me, I luckily have someone who reads my work all the time and really, really helps me get through it. So I don't need a VA for that. But what you want to have them do is like handle your inbox. You could have them reach out to do interviews, like set up all your interviews for articles or for a podcast or for profiles. You can have them manage your inbox and manage your calendar. You can have them help you with, a lot of different things in your business. But I think the important thing here is, like, you need to know what you need help with in your business before you get a VA, and you need to have a list, and you need to have a set of processes. Step 1, send this template email. Step 2, do this. You need to have it clearly defined before you hand it to someone else, because if they don't know what's going on, let's back up. You're going to have to teach them how to do these tasks. You're working together, so you're going to have to teach them how to do these things. If you don't know how to do them and you don't know what to give them, then that's a big mistake. You're kind of wasting everybody's time. You have to know what you're going to give them and how they're going to do it so that you can teach them how to do it. Mary popped in. Jared's got another one. Great tip on scheduling. Oh, Felicia hopped in. Hi, Felicia. She hopped in. She's from one of our mastermind things in the den. And Jared says, okay, Jared has another great comment here. So Jared says, my business isn't ready for a VA just yet, but I think you could do a whole video on this. I'm all about systems and efficiencies. Okay, cool. Yeah, I definitely can. I have, like I said, I have a list. So I'll add that to my thing, like my list of video topics that I'll go over, because I think it's really important too that our business is different than other businesses. It's not like a VA that, it's not like a VA is going to come in and just do certain tasks where like they would do for any other business. We need a VA, like my VA was also a writer, so I knew if I gave her anything, like the editing and the writing, like I saw her work ahead of time. And so I'm not worried about her being able to complete the actual writing stuff because I know she's a writer. I saw her work. And I think that's kind of important. If you get a VA who's just going to do functional stuff like, make sure your tax stuff is done or schedule appointments and not something that's so writing based, I think that's, it depends on your business. But I like just having someone who is also a writer, because when you give them something, like if you're in a pinch and you're like, I just need someone else to look at this. I've been looking at it for so long and I'm tired and I'm confused about this and all that stuff, then handing it to someone else who's already on your team who's a writer is really, really helpful. So those are kind of the things that I think really help with a VA. And then the other pieces, so if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat. If you feel like this has been helpful so far, give it a thumbs up and subscribe below if you haven't already. There's a few more things I want to go over before we hop over to questions, but if you have questions, just pop them in the chat. So even though this year, you know what? We haven't done a pup date. What? Let's do a pup date real quick. So here they are sleeping. Charlotte has a cute shirt on today. Charlotte, you want to treat her? Can you show them your Creeping It Real shirt? Nice. Good job. All-star. Bear's asleep, so we're just going to let him sleep. Good girl. So Charlotte is a creeper, if you guys don't know already. She's totally a creeper. Here, I'm going to see if I can move this over. Oh, Bear's awake. Good morning, Bear. Welcome. Welcome to the treat factory. Can you get a little closer? There we go. Good job, buddy. Charlotte's almost 8, so she's a little bit more awake, but Bo's about 14. He's a little over 14 now, so, sleep is his number one priority among deer and other things. So, we have a quick little pup date. Charlotte, you look so cute. I love your shirt. Fashion, right? Good job. Good job, guys. All right. So, let's see. Any more questions in here? Cool. So, we're going to go over a little bit. So, let's talk about 2021. So, I think this is kind of, an important piece where now we've got some questions that we can answer, but now we're going to plan for 2021. So after you do your whole analysis for 2020, you look at all the roadblocks, all the bumps, all the other stuff that happened during 2020, we're going to plan for 2021. So how do we kind of do that? Well, we're going to look at our clients, how much we made from each client, whether or not we like to work with them, what we would like to do in the coming year. We want to look at basically how were our quarters, which quarter was the best, which quarter was the worst. We want to basically look at the full scope of our business, from income to how we handled random tasks like emptying our inbox or pitching or LOIs, or which is our marketing tasks, our to-do list. How did we handle our schedule? How did we make sure that we got all of our tasks done on time? What were we doing in terms of handling our off time? What were we doing in terms of handling our goals that we set in January, like, whether or not that was going to work, or whether it was like way too out of the box. So when you're going into 2021, think about, what I'm hoping is that you will think about the biggest things that you can accomplish within a year time frame and cut them up into quarters. So what we're thinking about when we're planning our goals is, okay, cool, we're just going to pretend that we're going to wipe the slate clean and start over fresh for 2021. And we're going to dream as big as we can. We're going to do as many things as we can. And then we're going to see, okay, now that we have this big, piece of paper or a Word doc or a Google Doc full of all these ideas we want for 2021, let's see if we can break them out into quarters. What would I like to do? Would I like to have a 10K month? Would I like to have a 20K month? Would I like to have a 20K quarter? Do I want to work, one of my major priorities this year is to work for this one giant client. Like, I've been chasing this client for 2 years and I really still want to work with them. So my main priority for 2021 is to hopefully get that client, do some work for them. When we're thinking about all of the things that we could do, planning them by the quarter helps you cut down what you can and can't accomplish. Some things are really crazy and they might take a couple of years to come to fruition. And it would be very obvious when you cut it into quarters. So think about what you want to accomplish beyond just revenue too. Like, did you not have enough time off? Would you rather have more time to be outside? Like, maybe you spent this year working because you're like, I'm not going outside. I'm not interacting with people. I'm only doing the drop off from the grocery store. I'm not going inside. Maybe you want to just sit outside on your back porch or your front porch, or, sit outside on a bench at your apartment complex. Maybe that was something that you missed this year. Think about how you can incorporate all of these things into your 2021 plan. And I think what's really important is thinking about how your 2021 plan can go wrong. Because it will. I can tell you from being a freelance writer for almost a decade, from being a writer from beyond a decade, that things will go wrong. They just will. There's nothing that you can do to stop it. It's just, that's part of life. Life sometimes goes wrong. Like 2020, I think, taught us, like, things can go wrong. We don't know what to do, and we're not really sure how to move forward. So plan for that. Think about, okay, cool, like, if we go back into lockdown for another 6 months, how am I going to handle that? If my significant other is freaking out and really scared and worried, how am I going to handle that? And how am I going to meet my deadlines? How am I going to continue making money in my business, supporting my family, supporting my dreams? How am I going to do all these things at once? I think when you think about all the things that can go wrong, I think that helps you. It's called future tripping, right? Future tripping is something where you're like, okay, I'm in the future. What could go wrong? What's going to help? And sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. For me, planning my goals for 2021 or the following year, thinking about what can go wrong helps me give myself some security in the fact that I already have steps that might fix it. Well, let's say January and February turn out to be crazy months. Let's say that people turn on the faucet and they're like, let's go with content. Like, we're ready. Let's do this thing. And it turns out that it's March and you're like, I need a break. Like, oh my gosh. Or you go back into lockdown. Like, plan for that. Say, like, what if my work schedule is crazy and I need to take some time off, or my work's getting shitty because I'm really tired? Like, how would you handle that? Would you just, like, how would you speak to your clients? How would you plan for having your time off in the future? How would you, deal with, working all the time. There's a lot of different pieces here where you can think about how can things go wrong, and then what kind of plan would I put in place, or what kind of steps would I take to deal with that. Like, let's say you don't do any marketing. Let's say you're so busy that you don't do any marketing. Well, what would be your plan for that? So let's say Q1, you just don't do any marketing, and you're working like crazy, and then it turns out that Q2, like, all your projects are done. Well, let's think ahead. So like if I'm in, April, which is the start of Q2, so I'm in April of 2021, and I don't have any work. Well, let's try to backtrack that. Let's see if there's some way, even if we're crazy busy, that we could send like 1 LOI a week, or 5 LOIs a week, or 5 pitches a week. Something that we can do even when we're busy to just get it done and get it out the door. So I think that working backwards of what can go wrong will really help. Or let's say like you have a client and it turns out that it's just not working out. And even though you had this 6-month contract, after month 2, you're just like, this is not working, I gotta leave. What would you do? How would you handle that? How would you say like, hey, I'm sorry, this isn't a fit. We need to cancel our contract. How would you handle the lost revenue? Work back from all the problems that you could see popping up in your business, like late payments, or trying to get a client to sign on, or following up, or marketing, or all of these other things that can pop up in your business over the time of running it, and plan for those working backwards. So I think that really helps kind of alleviate some of the stress, but also gives you a sense of security in that, like, you already have a plan if something goes wrong, and you can think about all the things that would go wrong in your business. So the last thing I want to say before we hop to questions, and if you guys have questions, pop them in the chat. The last thing is how to stay in your own lane when it comes to goals. So let's say you hang out with a bunch of people who make a ton of money, which, like, I have friends who make a ton of money. Like, I think one of my friends is going to top, I think she's close to like 250K, if not 220 this year. And it's crazy. And she's like my spirit animal. But if I was always sticking in her lane where she's like, yeah, I want like a 40K month and I want to do this, like, I'm not close to a 40K month. I will tell you right now, I'm not close to a 40K month. I had my first 11K month. I've had 10K months, but it's not, 40K is 4 times that. So I would need to restructure what I do in terms of work. I would need to restructure to more of her types of work, or more bigger concept projects, or there's so many different things that I would need to do to try to get there. So I think it's really important to stay in your own goals lane. Think about your own goals, how you can move forward, how you can kind of do the things that help your business move forward, instead of being like, well, I don't have a 40K month, like, I guess I should just give up. I guess that's it. That's the end. Like, goodbye. I'll just take a nap for the rest of the year. Like, no, we have to stay in our own goals lane. We have to stick on our own path. Like, maybe for you, freelance writing is just about making an extra $1,000 a month. It's a side thing. You like to write. You want to write for like Town and Country and Travel and Leisure, and that's it. Like, you only want to write for like 2 magazines and make an extra $1,000 a month. That's a lot different than someone trying to make, 300, 400, 500 grand a year from copywriting or messaging and positioning, or bigger marketing scope projects, or content marketing, content strategy type projects. If that person who wanted to only make $1,000 extra every month was trying to catch the 40K person, like, they would be unhappy. They'd hate it. They'd quit freelance writing. They would be, oh, well, it's not for me. No, you just had to stay in your own goals lane and stick to the things that you wanted to do in your business, not the things that everybody else wants to do. And, oh my gosh, this happened, and maybe I should do this, and then which platform should I be on? Like, just stay in your own goals lane. Focus on the things that you set out to make your client list better, your income better, your website better, your LinkedIn, like all of the things that make up your business. Focus on that, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Now, one caveat here, you can worry about what other people are doing if you feel like, oh, that sounds really great, like maybe I want to try that. That's cool. You can try it, but don't evaluate the business self-worth on whether or not you reach that thing you're trying. I think a lot of times if you just make it an experiment, rather than like, I have to do this, someone else says it's working, we got to do the things that are working. I think if you just think of it as an experiment, it's a lot more fun if it doesn't work out. And even if it does work out, than saying like, oh my gosh, I have to do the right thing and hop on the right platform and do this other thing. Just a quick other note, like, there is no right platform. From my personal opinion, there is no right platform. Don't ask like, which writing platform is this? Like, there isn't one. Build your own business, do your marketing. make a foundation, because if that platform disappears overnight, like let's say 2021 comes and they're like, nope, we're shutting the platform down, your whole business has now been flushed. Your whole business that existed on this platform for people to come to you to give work does not exist. So build your own business, make it outbound marketing, make relationships, get to know people, and then you have a solid foundation to always go back to that's yours. You have something that you built, you know how to build it again. And the only platform I really talk about, like, we're talking about like writing platforms, like certain specific companies that are like, yeah, come here and we'll pay you and we'll just give you some clients. Platforms like social platforms, like LinkedIn is your jams. Stick to LinkedIn. Don't worry about doing everything else. And I got to do Facebook and Twitter and da-da-da. Like, LinkedIn is good enough. Just do that. So if anybody has any questions, we can do that. I like Jared's comment in here. Jared always has like the best attitude. So he's like, let's go. So I love that. I love you. I'm going to give you a little bit of another update just to see if you guys want to add any questions in there. Let's see if we can give them some Treatos. Minnie, you want some Treatos? You want some Treatos? Good job. You're beautiful and I love you. Bear, you want a Treato? Good morning. Welcome to today, Bear. Welcome to today. Charlotte, you look like a little gem. I like your funny ears. And I like your funny t-shirt. Good job. All right. Okay. I don't see any questions. And I really like all the comments and all this stuff. Like, I like that you guys brought a lot of energy to this. So that's really cool. And I'm really hoping that you guys are really excited about the upcoming year. I hope that, you know, when you guys think about 2021, yeah, 2020 was crazy. And there was a lot of scary and uncertain and wild things that happened this year, but I'm hoping that you always kind of, like, I always kind of stick to hope. I always feel like things will get better. I always feel like things will end up working out. I just kind of hold on to that. I always hope that it gets better. I always hold on to the fact that, like, I know eventually things will work out. I know eventually it's going to get figured out. Like, if you believe that you can figure things out, like, I think that's pretty much it. Like, that's an idea from Brendan Burchard, is like, basically your confidence comes from the idea that you believe you can figure things out. If you think you can figure out whatever life throws at you, or pandemics, or like all the other stuff, I think that'll really serve you very well going into 2021. It'll serve you a lot with picking goals. It'll serve you a lot with figuring out which clients to keep and which ones to let go of. And yeah. Oh, Jared has one more comment I think is really good. So I'm going to pop it in here real quick. It says, great advice to build your own business in your own lane and not get sidetracked by others' goals and where they are. Yes, this was, the reason I talk about this is because, like, this was my major problem. Like, I tried to build other people's businesses. I tried to do all these other things, like, oh, the best thing, and I want to do the best technique and this thing, and like, so-and-so recommended this. Like, no, you have to try a bunch of different things and figure out what works for you. Build your own freelance writing business, because if you try to build everybody else's business, I know from experience it's going to be a huge dumpster fire and it's going to be a disaster. So build your own business off a platform, something that you have like all these different pieces that you know how they work, rather than just sitting on a platform and hoping someone comes to you. Be proactive. I'm going to give you guys one update before we go. Everybody's sleeping. Charlotte's looking for Treatos. Everyone's got their eyes open now. Let's see. There she is. There's a little bug eye. All right. Wishing you guys well. Happy holidays. I will be here next week. So happy holidays. If I don't hear from you, see from you, good new year. Make sure you plan for 2021. And I'm sending all the good vibes that 2021 is a great year for you. Hope you have a really good Friday. See you later.